Well, hello everyone. Cliff Ravenscraft here, live on Facebook. And let me see if I can fix my camera angle here. Just a moment. I should have done that before I officially went live. Oh my goodness. So, as we all know, there are plenty of things going on in the world that are different this week than they were a few weeks ago. And that's what I wanted to come here and share with you guys, talk with you guys about this. And I have scheduled this to go live today, and it does look like I am live on Facebook. And I want to invite those of you who are watching live to comment with me here. Hopefully, I can pull up my comments. Yep, I see them right here. So, Anitra Moore, welcome. And Elmer Liu, welcome, or good morning to you in Australia. And today, the topic is, how do we deal with this new world that we find ourselves living into today? This new reality, if you will. It's very clear that we are entering into a new season of uncertainty. There is going to be a great deal of disruption to our normal lives, the way that we live for the next several days, potentially for the next several weeks. I don't know much beyond that, but I think if there's one thing that is certain, that our lives will be disrupted in a pretty significant way. We're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like, and I want to talk about fear and how some people are saying that, hey, fear is actually causing more problem in this world than the virus ever will. I have friends of mine that I see online. There are those who are posting, this is no big deal. Everybody's blowing this out of proportion. Guys, just go about your normal daily life. This is nothing. This is no big deal. I'm sure you've seen those reports. And then, of course, there are the ones who are suggesting we need to panic, we need to fear, we need to stock up. You need to, there's both sides of this. And so I want to just share with you my thoughts as a leader. And it's crazy for me to think of myself as a leader, but I know that I am. I've been thinking about just the fact that over the years, since December 2005, when I first launched a podcast and I started reaching thousands and thousands, and then over the past, more than 15 years now, reaching tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people. I realize there are a lot of people who have turned to me over the years, not just for the technical advice, the business advice and stuff like that, but a lot of people have been drawn to my message in this world, my voice in this world, because it's a voice of hope and encouragement. It provides basically maybe a different way of seeing certain situations from a different perspective than maybe what you might get elsewhere. And that's what I wanted to talk to you today. I want to talk to you about uncertainty. I want to talk about disruption to our lives. I want to talk about fear and obviously the coronavirus. So the coronavirus, I don't need to tell you what it is. Everyone who's watching me either live right now, or those of you who are watching any version of the replay of this. By the way, welcome to John Harrell. Miranda, welcome. Megan and Leo upstairs watching. James is here, and Audrey Hall. So Audrey Hall says, I'm in the higher education space. It's been so traumatizing. Okay. So, and by the way, Audrey, I hope you don't mind, but I may come back to your comment specifically. Let's see. Do I have the ability to take that? So right there it is. There's a comment right here. I'm in the higher education space. It's been so traumatizing. I want to come back to that language, and trust me, I get where you're coming from, and how can I think I could take that down. So I want to come back to that language. So the coronavirus, obviously we know that this is an animal-borne virus, came out of the Wuhan province in China. It's now spread globally. It is now officially been described as a pandemic. The spread, there is no current cure, there is no vaccine for this so that you can get inoculated. The reality is that this thing is out in the wild, and there are certain people who are at very high risk of death, above and beyond what maybe the common flu is. And those who are at risk, obviously, you've heard the elderly, those with chronic respiratory issues, and just those with weakened immune systems. That's about as much as I know. I am no medical professional. I do not claim to have any expertise or experience in the medical professional. I do know a lot of medical professionals, and I've had conversations with them. I have been getting most, if not all, of my information directly from the CDC, which is the Centers for Disease Control, and also the World Health Organization, or the WHO. That's where I go to get most of my information. And that's where I would recommend that you get most of your information as well. There are also, depending on where you live in your geographic region, I know here in the United States at least, we have local public health departments and stuff like that. So I'm also checking in with them. But that's where I'm getting my information. I know that I'm a social media guy just like you are, and I know that you are because you're watching me or hearing my voice now. So in social media, there's a lot of information out there. There are people arguing that this thing's going to be gone in 2 months and life is going to go back to normal, and we're all going to say this was no big deal. And if that's the case, by the way, that may be true. That may be true that in 4 or 5, 6 months from now, life will go back to exactly the way things used to be, and who knows, this thing may or may not come back by the next winter time and stuff like that. And if that's the case, and life is going back relatively to normal, it may have to do with the fact that there was a halt of the spread of this stuff. And of course, this thing is spreading. It is going out. And okay. The first thing that I want to talk about is this disruption. So this really hit home for me personally yesterday. That's when all of a sudden my daughter comes into the bedroom. She goes, "Oh my gosh, Dad, spring break has been extended all the way until pretty much the end of April." And they're not only talking about extending the spring break until the end of April, but after that, they're talking about the fact that I may not actually go back to classes, that they might finish the rest of the semester through online learning or non-traditional instruction, as they call it. And then I get some input later on in the afternoon yesterday. My daughter, who is in high school, the entire Board of Education, our county, has shut down. The state of Kentucky has declared a state of emergency, and the Board of Education decided to shut down the school system for, I think it's all the way through the end of April as well. And they did have school today. They brought everybody in and say, "Listen, we're going to explain to you as much as we know about how you can expect to be instructed. But for the next several weeks, you're going to be learning. You're going to be doing schoolwork. You're going to get your instruction from home." And when I started to hear, I had already heard about conferences that were being canceled, big tech conferences, global conferences were being canceled. I already heard about that a couple of weeks ago. And I realized that, that makes a lot of sense because those are global conglomerates of people coming together and in the thousands. But then all of a sudden, I just started hearing words like San Francisco is banning any gathering of 1,000 people or more. And then I'm hearing stories of gatherings of 100 people or more being banned in certain parts of the world. And there's a lot of fear about martial law. There's about all of this other stuff. And I gotta tell you that you start seeing people posting on social media. There's no food on the shelves. The canned goods are being wiped out. Uh, Hand sanitizer is completely wiped out. Toilet paper is wiped out, and then of course there's all these people wondering why the toilet paper, and why are people doing this? I'm sure you've seen all of this stuff. Um, where do I want to go? So the coronavirus is here. It's unavoidable as far as the impact on our lives at this point, and that brings a great deal of uncertainty. So this morning, I took my daughter to what is currently, in her mind, the last day of high school in the normal way of attending school, at least for the next several weeks, and who knows how long beyond that. But today, I took her to school, and I'm sitting here thinking, look at all of these school buses that are here that have picked the kids up to bring them to school. And the school buses, those are the same school bus drivers that will be driving people home, or those children home. And so I began to think about the fact that, okay, well, let's see here. Those school bus drivers will not have they will not be providing the service for which they're paid for over the next several weeks. For some of those school bus drivers, that's their income, a significant source of their income. So that's going to impact the potential livelihood of those individuals. I don't know what payment situation is going to be for them, even though the schools may not be meeting. But I would imagine that that's going to have an economic impact in that area. Then there are the people who attend or who speak at conferences, host conferences, people who have all of these funds that are tied up in big, huge events, contracts that are signed up, and those contracts are being, those events are being canceled, and people are, the businesses that host these things, they're out millions of dollars. You've got different. And of course, those companies that host major conferences employ lots of people. You've got the hotel industries, the people who work at all of these hotels, the maid staff, the cleaning crew, all the restaurants and all these other things. The people who have tourism-based businesses. A lot of that stuff is slowly screeching to a halt, as everyone is being encouraged to stay at home, to isolate yourself from large groups of people. And yeah, it is definitely having an impact. There are retail locations that they're going to start looking like ghost towns as a result of this. And of course, you may have already seen some of this stuff. I'm not saying any of this stuff to play into the fear. But I have certainly heard people say, well, this is the beginning of the end. I do not believe that for 1 second, that it's the beginning of the end. I believe that it is the beginning of a change for a season of life that we are entering. And it's a season of uncertainty. There's a season of unknowns that we don't know how things are going to play out. One thing that is for sure is that this virus does spread, and there are people who are at great risk. And the desire is for us to do whatever we can to stop the spread of this disease, especially among those who are at high risk, the elderly, those who have weakened immune systems, chronic respiratory issues. These people are at high risk, and that I don't think is in question. And so as somebody who has parents who are I wouldn't call them elderly, but my dad just turned 70 years old. So I mean, it's like, listen, I would like to do whatever I can to avoid contracting this virus and then going over and visiting them and being the person who might transmit the coronavirus to them in a situation. So when I read the statements from Western Kentucky University, for example, it says, listen, they said this: non-traditional instruction and event cancellations are being done out of an abundance of caution. Not because we believe that the world's coming to an end. This is an abundance of caution. While the weather is still conducive for the spread of this virus, while there is currently no known treatment to eliminate this immediately among those who are at high risk, there's absolutely no vaccine at this point, that at least that I know of. And of course, I've heard the really weird rumors about that stuff as well. But out of an abundance of caution, we are doing whatever we can to stop the unnecessary spread of this virus. And I think that's a reasonable thing. And then, of course, I think about this from a liability perspective as well. If there is a global pandemic, there are lots of things. Is this unreasonable for people to shut things down? I don't know that it is. The Boone County Board of Education recently said behavioral risk mitigation strategies are the best option for slowing the spread of this disease. That's what people are trying to do. That's why things are screeching to a halt. That's why things are being shut down. That's why events are being canceled. That's why flights are being banned in certain situations. And I'm, for one, not very happy about the impact that this is already having and will continue to have, the disruption that it will cause. You think about the people who have normal day jobs where they go to an employer, and the average American that I know out there, they work hard to make ends meet financially. The average American has a significant amount of debt that they're under, a lot of financial stress. I know that is the truth for the average American. And so the one thing is that those people who have children, and oftentimes both mom and or dad, if they're both even in the household together, they both work outside of the home to make ends meet. And now all of a sudden, without any real warning, it's like, how do I handle childcare? How do I handle my children who normally would be in school while I work? Now, how do we handle the financial pressure of childcare? And how do we, there are certain families, at least in our community, that they're reliant upon the school lunches for feeding their family, for their kids. This stuff is definitely impacting the lives of a lot of people. This disruption could cause some folks to go without income for a period of time, an unknown period of time. Some people could end up losing their jobs. Companies could go bankrupt. There's a lot of things that could happen. And to say that, this is no big deal, everybody's, I just don't think that that's fair to say that it's no big deal. It is a big deal, one way or the other. And there's a part of me that says, you know what, I'd like to see this thing not spread any further than it needs to spread. And so while there's definitely going to be disruption in the economy, this is going to have ripple effects. For those who are not prepared, this could have permanent consequences for some people in the business arena, in the economy. But my hope and my focus on how do I think about schools being shut down, conferences being canceled, people not being encouraged to not go out to retail and restaurants and all these other industries that are going to be impacted over the next several weeks, potentially months. I don't know how long. My hope is that these measures will mean lives saved. Hundreds of lives, thousands of lives, tens of thousands of lives. I don't know. But my hope is that what we are enduring will be worth it. That's the first thing that I want to focus on. I hope that what we're doing we will look back and consider the fact it will have been worth it to have saved people's lives. when it comes to the financial uncertainty, we all have varying degrees of challenges in that area, and I realize that I am not one to speak to people's uh, concerns about financial security. I have had the privilege and the blessing of creating a business for myself where I'm no longer tied to a an occupation that requires a lot of the things that would normally be required. I have an online business, a coaching business, uh, that allows me to do what I do right here from the safety and security of my home. And I talk with people and around mindset issues. And there was a time in 2008 when there was an economic collapse, and I was in a position where I know that I was blessed that my business wasn't negatively impacted, but in fact, it was something that I saw an upswing in the number of people who needed the types of services that I do, and I see that here as well. And I realize it's hard for me to relate to the financial. Uh, what was the word? The traumatization of the higher education space. I can realize that, wow, I did not see this coming. This was not my expectation, and so I I I just really am frustrated by those who say this is no big deal. The fear of this is just going to is a bigger deal than the virus is. And discounting the entire thing. It is a big deal. All right, it is a big deal. Here's what I want to say though. I want to say that uncertainty is always there. I know that sometimes we are lulled into this sense that because things have gone in a pattern of just reality for so long, that sometimes we just expect that it's always there. The one thing that I thought about the other day is there's a real possibility that you and I may know somebody who contracts the coronavirus. There's a possibility that you or I might contain contract the coronavirus. There's a possibility that we may know somebody who would die from this, which is it's like that pretty much hits close to home. I mean, to think that this is a potential reality for us. And there are some that says, I can't believe that we're here. You've seen the things where people are saying, it's like, listen, there's a 98 point something percent chance that we'll survive this if we contract it. Yeah, but for those who are in the 1.5% that are at high risk, the fact that we might get the sniffles and a little bit of cold sweats and all this other stuff. Do we just go ahead and just walk out and do all of this stuff, not knowing whether we have this or not, and spread this among those who are high risk? There's the reality is that there is a potential risk for a lot of people, and we may know somebody who gets this. We may know somebody who dies from this, but it's not a whole lot different from the uncertainties that exist for us every day. And that's one thing that I want to talk about is uncertainty is something that exists in our lives every single day. And we are resilient and we get beyond it. I mean, do some research online. How many car accident related, vehicle related fatalities are there every year? You already heard about the number of flu related fatalities there are every single year. You see all of the other, just look at the number of people who die from diabetes and heart related issues, preventable stuff there are so many deaths, so many uncertainties. And yesterday when I was driving to the gym, there was a semi truck that had plowed right into a car, and I there the reality is that person woke up that morning thinking that life is just going to go according to the predicted path. I'm on my way to work, and I'm late for work or whatever the case may be. But whatever happened, that person didn't make it home that day. And that happens in the lives of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people every day around the world. And we all have a lot of uncertainty in our life. And we deal with it. And it's just that this is something that hopefully we could prevent and save lots of people's lives. And I think that that's truly at the heart of what people are trying to do. And that's the one thing that I'd like to just consider for just a moment. Is the disruption to our day-to-day life, is it worth potentially saving the lives of hundreds, if not thousands or more people around the world? For a couple of weeks? Is it worth this? And regardless of if it's worth it or not, let me ask you this. Is it inside our control at this point to do anything about it? And the answer is no. And so the next thing I want to talk about is fear. All right? Fear. There are people who say, listen, the fear of the coronavirus is going to be far more damaging and it's going to far outweigh the actual potential damage of the virus within itself. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But the reality is that things are being shut down. Businesses are going to be impacted. That's become clear. It became clear to me when all of a sudden universities are shutting down. College professors, this is going to have a short-term massive ramification, and there's some uncertainty about the future ramification. And a lot of people have fear. And I want to tell you that if you've been told that you shouldn't fear at all, I'd say that fear, in my mind, is a God-given emotion. It is there. We have it for a reason. It's a gift for us to have fear. And one thing I would say is that fear's job is to alert us of danger or potential danger, that something is currently happening or on the horizon around this. And so fear is like, man, hello, are you alert to the issue here? And are you ready to respond to this right now or right around the corner? Fear is like, it's a superpower that we've been given. And when I say superpower, it's our spidey sense. If you're familiar with Spider-Man has this little tingling spider sense that all of a sudden when some kind of danger is around him, he senses it. And it's like, whoa, something's going on here. Makes him super hyper aware. What's going on? What actions do I need to take right here, right now? Boom. All right. Fear, I think, initially is a good thing to alert us to what's going on, what's in our surrounding right here that could potentially damage or harm us. So, fear, first and foremost, is a good thing. Now, to be paralyzed by fear is not a good thing. Fear is not meant for us to be paralyzed. Fear is meant to alert us, to make us aware, and then it's done its job. Now, for those who then get paralyzed by fear, it's usually because we get into a pattern of focus of going to a worst case scenario. Especially when there's a lot of uncertainty. It's like, this means that I'm going to lose my job. I'm not going to have any income. There's not going to be any food at the grocery store. I wasn't prepared for this. I heard about this. Now when I go to the grocery, there's no food. Our family's going to starve. Even if we don't get the coronavirus, we're going to die of hunger. The entire world economy is going to collapse. If you continue to go down the path of worst case scenario, regardless if those things ever happen or not, you're going to be living a reality that doesn't quite exist and may and very likely might never exist. But here's one thing that I know, and I'm not a medical professional, but you can do the research on this yourself. If you allow yourself to go down a spiraling down cycle of fear, anxiety, stress, traumatization, and you allow yourself to become paralyzed and just consistently remain focused on this. Oh my gosh, this is the end. This is worst case scenario. This is everything's terrible. You will start having cortisol go through your body. You will be in what we call the fight or flight sort of response system. And what will happen is it actually will start shutting down blood flow to other organs of your body, and all of a sudden your heart and your pancreas and your lungs and all these other things, you have the potential of creating for yourself a self-fulfilling prophecy by actually shutting down blood flow to essential organs of your body that will promote your health and promote your immune system. You have the potential of doing more harm and bringing about stress, weakening your immune system by consistently allowing yourself to be in this anxious state, this highly stressed state. And with a weakened immune system, if by chance the coronavirus, or even if the coronavirus never is impacted, what if you just stay in your home and you've stocked up food for months and you've got more toilet paper than 3 neighborhoods need for a lifetime? But if you allow yourself to be stressed out, even if the coronavirus turns out to be no big deal, which some people say, if you continue to allow yourself to be drowning in the emotions that are associated with ongoing, perpetual, nonstop fear, you're going to end up with some sort of heart disease and all sorts of other symptoms and stuff like that. It's just tears you up inside to have so much stress and anxiety. And the reality is having stress and anxiety is not going to put you in a mindset where you can do anything of positive nature to help the situation. So the way that I look at this is the coronavirus is here. The normal way of living for the next few days, weeks, and potentially months, completely different. We are living in a different world, a different reality of what the external world is for the next several weeks or potentially months. Who knows how long it will last? That's a reality. That is a fact. People's income, a lot of people, it's going to have ripple effects. That is a fact. Now, all of a sudden, the initial fear is there. It's like, I need to be alerted to this. And as soon as you have been alerted, as soon as you become hyper aware that there is a situation, okay, fear's done its job. It's time to take that fear and say, wow, I am incredibly thankful for this gift. I'm so incredibly thankful for the tingling, the hair-raising little sense that I just got that, man, I need to wake up and become hyper-aware of the situation that's going on. All right? Fear at this point has now done its job, and it's time to say, okay, take this fear. Thank you for this. Let's put fear over here on the shelf. Okay? Put fear on the shelf. And say, you know what? Let's put this here for the next time it's necessary to alert me and make me aware of something else that might be dangerous to me. But right now, I understand the dangers that exist here. I understand the dangers to my financial income. I understand the dangers to my own physical well-being, the well-being of my at-risk friends. I understand the dangers that exist to my food supply or whatever the case may be. I understand the dangers that exist here. Now that I'm aware of it, here's what I am committed to doing. I am committed to not allowing myself to go to worst case scenarios. I am committing myself not to be anxious. I am committing myself to not drown in stress and cortisol and all that other negative stuff. I will only commit myself to asking the positive questions that are going to help me make the best of this situation for myself and those around me and in my community and globally if I have resources to be able to help there as well. So ask yourself not like, oh my gosh, how bad is this going to get? Don't ask. That's a terrible question to ask. How bad is this going to get? Instead, ask yourself some certain questions. What is currently the real situation? I want to see this situation as it truly is, no less, but absolutely no worse than what it truly is. Get your information from reputable sources. Check out the CDC, check out the World Health Organization, and check out your local geographic public health information organization. Look at those places for your sources of information. If I can, I'd recommend that you not tune in to sources of information where, unfortunately, those sources of information are basically they are monetized by keeping you glued to them because of advertising. A part of me wishes that if we're going to go full bore on into an economic thing, I think that news organizations need to be shut down. Like 24-hour news outlets should be shut down between now and while the state of emergency is in place. There should be, or if they aren't shut down, they should be cut off from profiting from all. This is crazy, but shut down their revenue from this. And it's like, listen, we're not going to profit from this either. But the reality is that so much of the headlines are like, you need to be tuned in, you need to be hearing this, you need to hear this. And by creating fear, they can keep you tuned to them for so much longer. And again, fear has already done its job. You don't need them to consistently tell you how bad it is, asking you horrible questions like this is the economy. So much of this could potentially be politicized. So I would encourage you not to tune in. If you're going to tune into a reputable source that gets its information from the CDC, but I tell you what, or the World Health Organization. But and I have my own political leanings. I do, and I'm not here to share those with you. And so if I were to tune into, okay, let's, in the United States here, there's really the two big ones. There's CNN, and then there's the Fox News. And of course, there's a whole myriad of other ones, right? And of course, there's the newspapers and stuff like that. I have my own source that speaks to a worldview that I personally have, right? But I got to tell you right now, I've tuned in to their stuff, and it's sensationalized, and it does pander to fear. It wants to incite a little bit of panic. I know that they say they don't want to, but there's I see it being used for this side of the political spectrum. I see the manipulation. One thing I can tell you, I made a transition from Podcast Answer Man to Mindset Answer Man, studying human behavior, studying human personality, studying the power of suggestion to the subconscious mind. I have studied a great deal about how people are conditioned to do the behaviors that they do, how they're conditioned to act, and I am literally seeing manipulation on both sides. I'm seeing it from CNN, I'm seeing it from Fox News, I'm seeing it from the New York Times, I'm seeing it from the Washington Post, I'm seeing it everywhere. People, if you continue to tune into those sources on a consistent, ongoing basis, I will tell you as what I may not know. I may not be able to speak to you with any sort of medical expertise whatsoever related to coronavirus. And I have no desire to speak to you from that. But from a mindset, behavioral situation, if you tune into Fox News, CNN, or any other outlet, all of them, you are being manipulated. You are absolutely being manipulated by the headlines and by the stories. You are being led to think and feel a certain way. And I can tell you that the people who are doing the manipulating, most of them feel like they're doing it out of good intentions on both sides. They genuinely believe what they believe, and they are trying to persuade you one way or the other. And the funny thing is that they're diverging. It's like, this is what this means, and everybody has their own reasons about what this means. And I would encourage you not to tune into all of those sources. I wouldn't. I would tune into the CDC, the World Health Organization, and your local public health information. That's where to get those things. All right. And then I would encourage you to find people who are asking the right questions. What can I do in a positive way to protect myself, to protect those that I know that are at risk, the elderly in my family and my friends, the people who have weakened immune systems, the people who have chronic issues? What can I do to protect these people? And I can tell you right now, it's all over the CDC and World Health Organization websites. Separate yourself from a lot of people. Don't go out unnecessarily, especially if you are in the high-risk category. And even if you're not, it's very clear that one of the things that you could do is work from home if you have that possibility. And if that's not within your realm of possibility, unfortunately, for some of you, it could be you've been forced to work from home. And I know that some of you have been forced to not work from home, but you've been forced to stay at home, or at least forced not to come into work. And that could be a situation where it's paid or unpaid. But I would encourage you not to freak out. Ask yourself this question. Are you in a situation where there's no income? Don't ask, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my house, go down the whole worst case scenario. Is it called forbearment on your mortgage? I just saw something on the other day. How do I get a forbearment in states of emergency on my mortgage? Just Google forbearment. I think that's the name of it. Can somebody tell me inside of the comments here, is it called forbearment? If it is, then look it up. But how can I skip mortgage payments without penalty? And basically, if you, let's just say for the next 3 months or 4 months, you can't make your mortgage because you have no income. You should, in many cases, you should be able to ask, I think, in writing, can I'm in this situation, and then you put it in. Forbearance. Thank you. Leslie Samuel says forbearance is the actual name of it. So apply for a forbearance. See, this is like, hey, here's the situation. I see it as what it is. What positive measures can I take to protect myself financially and health-wise and stuff like that? So if you're in a financial situation, rather than only focus on how bad things are and telling yourself how this is going to be, you'll never be able to recover from this. This is the end. I'm going to go hungry, all this stuff. I'm going to lose my house. Look for solutions to the problem. All right? See this as the problem as it truly is, and then seek solutions. Solutions should be your focus, not a focus on how bad things are. Don't go to worst case scenario. Say, what can I do to make this situation better? What actions can I take to help to mitigate my losses, to eliminate my losses? What can I do? First of all, what can I do? Some of you may be in a situation where it's like, man, I did not know this was coming. We shop once a week. We don't have lots of food. Food's starting to be in short supply, blah, blah, blah. Whatever the case may be. I'm been told not to go here, not to go there. I don't have a paycheck coming in. My business that I work for is probably going to close down. All of these things. Maybe that is a situation that you are facing or may face. It's possible. So I want to tell you, it's this great advice. I keep away from news programming in normal times too. I do keep away from news programming in normal times too as well. That was from Andrew McGivern in my chat room. But anyway, you may be in a situation where you absolutely have no food on the table, no money in the bank account. And if you find yourself in that situation, don't sit there in despair in stress and anxiety. Those things are not going to help you put food on the table. Instead, ask yourself this question: what can I do to find food for myself and my family? Where can I turn to find food? Take actions to get food. I promise you, if you become resourceful enough, you will find solutions to whatever problem you face. There will be people that you know who have food, who are not hoarders, who are not evil people. There are people who maybe actually, you may know someone, you may have a relationship with someone who saw this thing coming, who has been preparing and has months and months and months worth of food, who would be willing to share with you. Don't assume the worst in people. All right? So who knows? Just whatever you do, don't wallow in anxiety. Don't wallow in fear. Don't wallow. Only allow yourself to focus on the questions. What actions can I take to mitigate the problem, or to completely eliminate the problem that I face? What is the problem that I'm focused on? What does this mean? What actions will I take? And don't allow yourself to go to worst case scenarios. Allow yourself to, and now here's where I'm going to start shifting in my advice. I'm going to start shifting in the way that I communicate. And I realize there's some real danger here for me in how some people will perceive what I'm about ready to say. But I'm going to ask you to think about this. Ask yourself, what does this make possible for me? What does this make possible for you? I know that sounds insane, but I've seen people who have been diagnosed with terminal cancer, and they ask themselves the question, what does this make possible for me? I'm reminded of Randy Pausch, I think was his name. Was it Randy Pausch who did the last lecture? Can somebody put that in the chat room? And I know that the chat room's about 15 seconds, 20 seconds behind me, but is it Randy Pausch, the last lecture? Can somebody confirm that? And if it's correct, I won't say anything. I'll just say thanks, that was correct. If it is incorrect, I will do it. But this was a man who had multiple tumors. He was diagnosed, and he knew from his research it was a reoccurrence of tumors that he had previously got rid of through whatever, but it had come back, and he knew from the reports and everything that he had studied, he only had months to live. And he's got a wife, he's got young kids, and he's like, what does this make possible? Number one, wow, he could wallow in self-pity and doubt and stress and anxiety, which would probably only quicken his death. And that's something so John Harrell says, thank you. Randy Pausch, the last lecture. You can look it up on YouTube, the last lecture, or you could find the audio book on Audible, the last lecture. So anyway, what he did was he's like, listen, my kids are too young to remember me after I die. I'm going to die in a few months. And so my kids are too young to remember me. And one thing I know is this: many people on a daily basis wake up and think that they have their entire rest of their life, which in their mind is years and years and years and years. And unfortunately meet a tragic end of life without any warning, without any notice. And he's like, okay, at least in this scenario, I know for a fact that in several months I will be dead. He still wasn't guaranteed that he'd make it to the next day, nor are you or I ever guaranteed that. I'm not guaranteed to make it to the end of this Facebook live stream. All right? So that's a real reality that I live in every single day, and so do you. All right. But at least what Randy Pausch did is he's like, listen, okay, what does this make possible? Well, number one, it allows me to start putting some affairs in order. It allows me to start communicating to my wife over the next several months, things that maybe I should have been communicating all along. I can begin to do a lecture series where I can communicate to others around the world and have it video recorded. And this video recording of all the things that I wish I could sit down and tell my kids. I could sit down and try to tell my kids all the things I want to tell them, but they're too young to have any of it make sense. And there's a chance that if, have I not been diagnosed here, I wouldn't have had the time to take everything I want and put it all in an outline and give one last lecture that can be recorded. And yes, it's going to inspire hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people with what I'm about ready to share in my last lecture. But more than anything, this makes possible for me the ability to communicate the things that I think matter most, that they can learn from their dad when they're old enough to watch this video, and they could watch it at various different stages of their lives, that they will have known their dad and what he stood for and what he believed. And that's somebody who's facing terminal illness. There are people who have lost arms and legs who in different things. There are people who become quadriplegic, and they are not terminally ill. They're not diagnosed that they're not going to live for a couple months. But there's a likelihood that at age 35 they're in a wheelchair without the use of their arms and legs ever again. At least that's what they're being told. And there's a likelihood that at age 35 that this could be their reality, and they're likely to live until they're 70, 80, 90 years old. That's their diagnosis. That's what they're currently facing because of that car accident or because of that whatever, all right? And I have heard and know stories of people who actually ask themselves the same question. What does this make possible? Wow, you know what? Before I had this life, and I had a real heart and a desire to be a source of encouragement and inspire people, to be a public speaker and all this other stuff. I had this job, this occupation, and now all of a sudden, because I've lost the use of my arms and legs, and I can still speak, or in some cases they can't speak, but maybe they actually found some way to communicate. They begin to write books. They begin to for some of them, they do start speaking. They go on stages. They actually reach millions and millions of people. And now all of a sudden they're actually, their life is actually fulfilling, even though their life now no longer looks at all what they expected the rest of their life to look like. So what does this make possible? What can I learn from this? What can I grow from this? What changes can I make to this? What new opportunities will arise out of this? I can tell you a number of times in my own life, there have been things, and don't get me wrong, I have not experienced massive, major tragedy in my life. I haven't. I mean, I've got my sad stories, and I've lost loved ones. But it's nothing compared to what I know so many other people deal with. And I can tell you this, at least in every circumstance where I thought in the past, where it's like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing I could possibly imagine happening to me. I can't believe the number of times that I thought that, and I went to the negative spiral emotions. And I used to be a guy who lived in the negative spiral of emotions. And when I did, for those of you who don't know me you haven't known me long enough to know this, let me tell you what happens when you live in anxiety and fear and doubt and worry and stress all of the time. When you do that, I'm going to see if I can find my albums here and go here and find this image. This is what I used to look like. Just 5.5 years ago, that's a picture of me. And when it came time to try to bend over to pick something up, that right there, when I was trying to touch my toes, that right there is as far as I could reach when trying to touch my toes. All right? Completely different than I am today. And the reason why I've been able to change my life is because I stopped swimming in cortisol every day of my life. I changed the way that I see the world. I began to look at my problems and the pains that I've experienced in life, and I started to see them from a completely different perspective. You know, there. Have you ever had a? Let me ask you this: have you ever had a time in your life where you experienced something that you really thought this is the worst thing that has ever happened to me? But then years later, now that you look back on it and somebody asks you, "Hey, if you could go back and change anything, what would you change about that situation?" Would you it's like, "Listen, yeah, that was an extremely painful time. There was a season where that felt traumatic to me. That it caused a little trauma. But you know what? There are things that happened after that, and there were the way that I grew from that, the conversations, the way that I was able to experience empathy with others who have gone through similar circumstances, the way that all of a sudden I had credibility in the eyes of other people that I'd never had credibility with before. Wow, it's opened up so many opportunities to have fulfilling, life-giving ways for me to contribute to the lives of others. I don't know that I would ever go back and take that away. As challenging, as traumatic, as painful as that period of my life was, it's made so many things possible that and I've been able to have so much fulfillment in life as a result of how I grew and as what I've been able to bring to the table, that I would not go back and change it. I would not want to experience it again, but I see how I've grown and things that it made possible. There are people who say, I've heard people say, "Listen, getting cancer was the best thing that could have ever happened to me." And he says, "I wouldn't wish it on myself ever again. I wouldn't wish it on anyone else." But I have heard people say, it seems like it's the worst thing you could possibly, but getting cancer was the wake up call that I needed to change my life. And getting fired from that job was the best thing losing my job, getting laid off was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. There are a number of times when, even in my own online business, there have been times where it's like, man, I, I not too long ago, I actually had a $38,000 loss in my business, and I look back, it's like, whew, that was challenging. But man, what it made possible is freaking amazing. What it showed me was possible. I mean, the life that I'm living today would not be possible had I not had a $38,000 loss 2 years ago. It's like, whoa, I need to start taking a completely different approach to my business. And so for some of you who here's what I can tell you as the mindset answer man, I've been working with a lot of people who want to make life transformations. That's who I am. That's what I'm doing. And I'm not going to go too much into that, because this isn't about the promotion of the type of coaching and the products and services that I have. That's not what I want to do this for. But what I will tell you is that I have worked with a lot of people who are looking to make significant transformations in their life. So it's that diagnosis that you know what, I've just been told that I have neuropathy, and if you know, the thing is I may never get the feeling back in that toe or in those toes or in my foot or whatever. But man, if I don't start doing something now, I'm gonna probably lose my feet. And not to mention other dire consequences. And then all of a sudden, those people are ready to finally make the change in their physical health. I've seen people who were diagnosed with some pretty bad stuff, and then all of a sudden it's like that was the wake up call that they needed. And I've worked routinely with people who've lost over 40 pounds, over 100 pounds, over 200 pounds. I've worked with those people. I've worked with people who absolutely despise their soul-sucking day job that fills them with nothing but stress all day, every day. The only thing is, in their mind, it's a secure job that provides a very, very, very high six-figure income. And it wasn't until cancer came along that finally woke them up to the idea, you know what? I can't put off living the life that I feel called to live any longer. And in their mind, they're convinced it was the stress, it was the anxiety, and it was just the surviving to in the day job. As crazy as that day job may have been a gift to someone else, for that person, it was causing a lot of harm, and in their mind, it was very likely a high contributing factor to to a weakened immune system and the increase in the spread of cancer in their body. And like, that cancer woke me up, and today I'm cancer free. And I am today pursuing the life. And it was the decision to finally go out and launch their full-time self-employed business lifestyle. I've worked with people like that. I've worked with people who all of a sudden got laid off, but finally went out and found a job that was more in alignment with who they're supposed to be in this world. And maybe that might be true for you. Ask yourself, what, the story that I've been telling myself, that the job that I have today, is this really the security that I've been avoiding losing? By the way, I'm only speaking to those of you who have been dreaming of creating a side hustle business, that you've been dipping your toes into the water and all this other stuff. And you know what? It's like, this, I don't really know that I want to do this. I mean, gosh, the thing is it would be ridiculous for me to leave this very secure day job that, if I just hang it out here for the next 10, 15 years, I'm going to be set for life. Well, the question is when things happen and whole industries are impacted, we don't know what the question is was it really as secure as you thought it was? And so I'm not trying to promote fear. I'm trying to ask you to see this thing. Is this a wake-up call for you to say, is there time for me to change things in my life? For those, by the way, if I can give one recommendation for anyone who used to find yourself commuting hours and hours and hours and hours, let's just say the average commute was 26.2 minutes per day. That's an hour per day. That's 5 hours per week on average. All right. Now, that's the average. Some of you have been commuting more than an hour to work. So let's just say if you've been commuting 5 to 15 hours per week, every week for the last, as long as you could possibly even remember, to your day job. And now all of a sudden you're working from home and you're getting a paycheck. Be thankful that you have the opportunity and the privilege to work from home. See that as a gift, because guess what? There are other people that they're also not going to work, but they're not drawing a paycheck and they're not able to work uninterrupted from home. So see it as a gift, what it is, and be thankful. Trade your expectation for appreciation, no matter where you are. For those of you who may find yourself now, all of a sudden it's like, listen, I'm not going to work because they shut the doors of the retail location I work at. Nobody's coming into the restaurant. Nobody's coming into the store for the next 4 weeks. You know what? See this as a 4-week opportunity to finally spend 30 to 45 minutes a day every single day working out. Just go out and go for a walk outside in the open, fresh air. Stay at least 6 feet away from other people if you need to. But go out and get some fresh air if there's some fresh air to be had. And if there's not, do some jumping jacks. Do something. Get into the physical activity. And here's what I will tell you. Use this as an opportunity to start moving daily. When you start moving daily, it starts changing the way that your mind works. Get into some new routines. Start, the thing. For those of you who have been having issues, and trust me, I used to be there. I used to be the guy who overate consistently all the different times. See this as an opportunity to start saying, hey, you know what? I need to start conserving food for a little bit. I need to stop, relying on, 3,000 to 8,000 calories a day. See this as an opportunity, as a wake-up call for potential change. I know this sounds crazy, but this is really what it takes to get through uncertain times. The coronavirus is definitely, it's going to have an impact. It's going to have an impact on everyone. There's not a way that it won't have an impact on every single one of us, at least in the short term, in a pretty significant way. And there is actually uncertainty about how long it will be. There are estimates that in a couple weeks, warmer weather, with these measures, this will all be contained. Some places will go back to normal. Some businesses will, most of businesses will be able to have weathered this season, hopefully a very short season of this situation. There's some unknowns and uncertainty about the next flu season / coronavirus season. Will it come back? All this other stuff. Don't allow yourself to be worried about that. Be aware of it in a way that you weren't aware of it last year. Be thankful that you're aware of what you're aware of now, and begin to only ask yourself, what can I do proactively now to mitigate losses, to protect myself and my family, my loved ones, and to do the things, and what does this make possible? This is, and understand this, all of the uneasiness is a reality is that you've been conditioned to believe that you've had this secure, certain guarantee that life is always going to be the way it was. And just, I work with a lot of people who've experienced trauma in their past, and they've experienced lots of failure in their past, and they've experienced a lot of times where things didn't go right in their past, and they give up. And I've often told them, I said, listen, your past does not equal your future. That your past doesn't equal your future. But you know what? The opposite of that is true. You know, what's worked for you in your day job and how you've drawn an income, that doesn't always, it's not your past experience of 20 years of doing what you're doing and having it go well doesn't equal your future. I mean, we've been conditioned to think that this is the way things always are always going to be. But we all wake up in an uncertain world every single day, and now we're all aware of it. But it's important to not allow ourselves to be overcome by fear. Don't allow yourself to be overwhelmed with panic. Be aware of the situation. Be informed of what you need to be informed of. Get your information from reputable sources that aren't necessarily going to manipulate you to stay tuned to them hour by hour, breaking news alert by breaking news alert. You don't need that in your life. You could get by and be reasonable and play it smart and do everything within your power with no more than 15 to 30 minutes per day, every day, reading what's going on on the CDC website, the World Health Organization, your local public, thing, and just get your information there and consistently work with people and ask, what can I do? What actions can I do to make things, to decide, what do I need in this scenario? What actions can I take to get it? That's it. And allow yourself to only focus on positive actions you can take. Never allow yourself to worry about things that are outside of your control. That's my recommendation. That's my thoughts on the coronavirus. That's my thoughts on uncertainty. That's my thoughts on this disruption. As crazy as it sounds, I want you to be looking for the opportunities that exist for you in the disruption to your life. You know, I recently went away for 2.5 months out of travel. It's like, why did I commit to myself to traveling for 2.5 months, or 2.5 months out of a 3-month period of time? I was completely away doing travel from this event, speaking at that event, back and forth. And that's 2.5 months where I wasn't here doing the daily normal routine. And I was working 40, 50 hours a week, regularly doing all kinds of stuff in my business. And for 2.5 months, I wasn't doing those things. I was just doing a couple of essential things that I needed to do inside of my business to maintain the level of recurring revenue that I had in my business, and also to maintain a stream of new onboarding clients to replace the ones that leave after their commitments are done. And so And what happened is I came back after 2.5 months and I realized, wow, after 2.5 months of not doing 80% of the stuff I used to spend all of my time, effort, and energy doing, I realized that my business not only didn't uh, reduce in size, but instead my business actually grew. It became more profitable by doing only 20% of what I was doing before. And then all of a sudden I asked myself, what does this make possible? The disruption in my routine made me evaluate, what am I really doing that's actually getting the best results? And all of a sudden, as a result of being away for 2.5 months, I see the disruption as a gift and say, wow, you know what? I'm going to stop doing those 80% of things. It's not that they didn't have any return on investment, but the return was minute compared to the other things. And so what I did is I said, I'm only going to do this 20% of the things in my business. I'm only going to focus on these activities. But I'm going to focus instead of the bare minimum on those activities, because that's all I had was the bare minimum on those activities before, because I had the other 80% that I was doing that ate up most of my time, right? But now, you know what? I'm going to work 50% or less of what I worked with before, but the 20% I was going to do, I'm going to expand and only do those things in this 50%. And so I got to a place in my business where it's like, wow, this is incredible. What did this make possible? There are opportunities, my friends. There are opportunities that exist for you, even in the midst of uncertainty, the disruption to your lives. There's opportunities for you to change your physical fitness and health in a positive way. There's a way for you to shift the way you think about what you do for a living, how you earn money, how you provide value to other people. There's all sorts of opportunities that exist in this world. And regardless of what problems that you're facing, and I know some people, there's very likely to be potential deaths of our loved ones that we know from this stuff. I refuse to allow myself to be stressed and anxious about those things which I cannot control. What I will do is I will focus positively on looking for the things. What can I do to make this situation for myself, for those I love that are at risk, at high risk of this, for those I love that are impacted in a way that I'm not impacted? What can I do to serve myself, my loved ones, my community, and even a global world if I have the power to do that? And that's one of the reasons why I'm sitting here this afternoon recording this for you guys. I hope that you have found some value in this. I don't know. I did not come to this Facebook live stream with any sort of outline or agenda. I'm not here to sell you anything. I just wanted to be a source of hope. I want to be a source of encouragement, and I want to be a source of reason. Don't fear. Fear has already done everything it's necessary that's needed to do. It has already alerted you to the danger that exists. Thank it, set it aside, and let it be used for the next time it's needed. Now that you're aware of the situation, only allow yourself to ask questions that are going to move you in a positive direction for yourself, your loved ones, your community, and the world. Thank you so much. Until next time, I encourage you to take everything you do in life to the next level. Thank you guys so much. Bye-bye.